Hey, welcome to the newest show from Eat Local New York,
Hoagies Heros.
Ha! Boom! And this week's episode, we're talking bread. Stretch bread, to be exact. We've got it. You want it. Stay tuned. Stretch bread is a regional classic here in Central New York. Zach, have you ever had stretch bread before?
I have. I've had both of these before.
Really? What do you think of them?
I think they're very, very good quality bread, and they're very, very similar as well.
I've also had stretch bread before, most often from the Patisserie in Skaneateles.
Yep.
The Patisserie in Skaneateles is definitely one of my favorite places that exist in America. And typically, I would go in there in the summertime. We'd be out in Skaneateles. You walk in, ding, 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 ding. That's the little bell on their door. You go in there, you see all the cookies, you see the people working. Say, oh, hey, want a loaf of stretch bread? That's typically how I talk when I order bread. I don't know. Is that how you talk when you order bread?
No, I normally, like a normal human, order it like a normal human, order it like a normal human being.
Say that 3 times in a row. Zach, I'm going to tell you about a perfect day in the life of Anthem. Did you hear about it?
Yeah, I would love to.
All right. I wake up early. I go to my fridge and I grab a block of cheese that I've been saving. Okay. I get in my car and I drive out to Skaneateles.
Yep.
Okay. I go to the patisserie. I walk in. I order 2 loaves of stretch bread. One of those loaves I have to put in the back of the Jeep so that way I can't access it.
Yeah.
You know, like it has to stay safe on my drive back home. The other loaf, though, I put in the passenger seat right next to me. So, Zach, I bet you're wondering, well, wait a minute, what happened to that block of cheese you were talking about earlier? What I did is I took the cheese, I put it on my passenger seat, I turned the car seat warmer on. Okay, so that way the cheese was getting nice and warm and a little melty. So as soon as I get in the car after I've hidden the other loaf of stretch bread in the back of the Jeep, I take the new loaf of stretch bread, I brought that to the front with me, I take out my pocket knife, I cut it down the middle like a nice big hoagie, hence our name. I put that cheese in it. This time I'm driving back to Syracuse, except I grabbed the loaf of bread, I'm going like this. I'm eating the loaf of bread with the cheese in it my whole drive home.
Where's your wife during all this?
Oh, I leave her at home with this. She's not allowed to
You don't want anybody to see
no,
that?
Nobody's allowed to see this.
All right.
No, but having said all that, I really like stretch bread.
Yeah, I think it's one of the better breads in the area.
For sure. I love the fact that we have something that kind of like is our own. I mean, I know we have salt potatoes. I know we have chicken riggies, as we know plenty about. We have some other regional things, right? But stretch bread just seems like an actual accomplishment in the culinary world. What do you think?
I think so, yeah. I think it's storied enough. It's got the technique enough. It's
legitimate.
very legitimate.
It's not like, you know, I tell people from outside of Syracuse about salt potatoes, and they say, so you boil some potatoes and put butter on them?
Yeah.
But stretch bread is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
I do think arguably maybe too many restaurants in Syracuse use stretch bread on their sandwiches.
Yes, I could agree with that.
I'm just throwing it out there. Also, maybe heat your sandwich.
Oh, it is incredible toasted.
But stretch bread is great.
Yeah.
So Zach, what can you tell us about the history of stretch bread?
So stretch bread, in its capacity here, was invented by a woman by the name of Laura Holland in 1994.
Is it true that she was a nun?
I don't think that's none of your business. So she made this stretch bread with the technique that it's used for, and the dough recipe, and then she, like all of the foods we've talked about so far, brought that recipe to another restaurant, and then to another restaurant, and that recipe ended up at nowhere else but Pastabilities.
Pastabilities.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how that's worked out. Like we've talked about that in the chicken riggies episode, and that is that someone invented this and it traveled to other restaurants.
Yep.
Yeah, but stretch bread does have kind of a sketchy past to it.
Yeah. In recent history, there's been actually some lawsuits involving stretch bread between Pastabilities and some other places. Pastabilities and Patisserie are actually the same recipe from what I'm understanding.
So, yeah, Laura invents this method of making stretch bread. She travels around to different restaurants and shares the method with some of her coworkers. One of them, a guy by the name of Peter.
Yep.
Actually, fun fact, he also directed Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that. But Peter also, before he was a film director, was a bread baker.
Yeah.
And so he eventually landed at Pastabilities and then left Pastabilities to go and open his own bakery in Skaneateles, the Patisserie.
Yep.
So, stretch bread is passed around from different people throughout the years. Today, though, there's only really like 2 places that are allowed to call it stretch bread. And what are those 2 places?
Those 2 places are the Patisserie in Skaneateles and Pastabilities in Armory Square.
I do want to reach out to Laura and try and have her on the podcast. I think that'd be cool.
I think that'd be awesome, yeah.
I don't know if
Set things straight.
Yeah, I don't know if she's allowed to call it stretch bread.
Right.
Anyways, one thing I did notice in trying to find out online recipes for this or methods to baking it is that people have gone and called it, what have they called it? You said something earlier.
It's called Stirato.
Stirato.
Yeah.
So it appears, I'm not saying that this is 100% accurate because I don't want to get sued, but it appears that people, individuals on message boards on the internet have been calling it Stirato in an attempt to get the recipe and the method out there without calling it stretch bread.
Yeah, so they're kind of pitching it as an Italian ciabatta.
Funny thing about me, that was actually one of my nicknames in high school.
That's the best one so far.
All right, Zach. Well, enough about the history of stretch bread. Laura, Peter, who knows? Really, right?
Yeah.
No, we know. We just told you.
We did.
But let's get into it and try the patisserie stretch bread and Pastabilities stretch bread to find out which one really is the Italian ciabatta. We've got the patisserie. Zach, you drove out to Skaneateles to pick this up fresh.
I did. It was very hard to not consume the whole loaf on my drive back.
We bought this from the Pastabilities right here in Syracuse, New York. So let's try it. Zach, which one should we start with?
I think we should start with the patisserie, and I think we should eat from the middle to be fair.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Why don't you break that open? All right, I'm gonna-
As
All right.
friends. And you notice it does stretch
It does stretch.
when you pull it. So,
I'm gonna grab that hunk right there.
oh, it's lovely looking.
All right. The thing that I've always loved about it is it's like, it's not, I mean, it's perfectly cooked and baked,
Right.
but it's like doughy.
Yeah.
It's got a nice sour smell to it. It's not a sourdough.
Nope.
I have heard people claim for it to be the sourdough of the Northeast, but it's not.
That's a great piece of bread.
It's a great loaf of bread.
My
yeah.
God.
Patisserie is, if I had to take everything into account as to location, setting, what they make, how good they do things, the Patisserie is my favorite bakery in Central New York.
I agree.
Yeah.
And what I notice about this bread is if I'm eating just a normal loaf of Italian bread, I need a glass of water, or I need something to wash it down, or I need to dip it in something. This, I could eat this whole loaf just like this.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, let's take a little bit of red wine, dip our bread in it. I don't recommend what I just did, actually. But,
Unless you're Catholic.
I'm a Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Great bread.
Amazing bread.
The patisserie, I will say, it's like a stretch bread. It's got a chew to it.
Yep.
It's not too chewy, right?
Yep.
The crust breaks easily. I have made steak sandwiches with this before. Out of this world.
Yeah, banging probably.
You know?
Yeah.
Put some mayo on them, toast the buns, toast the bread, slice up some sirloin, some sauteed onions, mushrooms, provolone cheese.
Oh, who's the chef now? That sounds real good.
I am.
That sounds real good. Let's give this puppy a shot. Significantly longer. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. The same sort of pull to it.
Yep.
A lot more semolina, I'm noticing.
Yeah, a lot more.
We're going to have to get the maid to come clean.
Minus the fact that this looked a little bit better. It was a bigger loaf. It has way more semolina on it. It tastes identical.
The dough, the inside, has no difference to me whatsoever.
No.
But the crust is
A little chewier.
different. It's noticeably different, I think. I'm getting a lot of that webbing with the dough on that crust.
So one thing that I saw online for the recipe or the method for the Stirato is a 15-hour ferment.
Ferment, yep. Which that would, for people that don't know a lot about baking, that would give the rise in the dough to have those large bubbles and the separation that you see, well, that you see there.
Great bread.
Great bread.
The exterior is a little chewier than patisserie.
Well,
I think that's why we were talking about earlier. A lot of restaurants in Syracuse use stretch bread from Pastabilities on their menus for their sandwiches, which is great. But you really kind of have to have the right sandwich for it, and you have to, in my opinion, toast that bread. If you put cold stretch bread on here, it's going to be chewy. Sandwich is going to be messy. I'm not a huge fan of that.
now what we should say is the way that Pastability serves this bread, and it is at room temperature. It's not
Right.
normally fresh out of the oven hot bread.
Yeah.
Is with their hot tomato oil. And really, you could just eat the whole loaf of bread with that tomato oil.
Yes.
But I do agree with you when it comes to the sandwich use.
Yeah.
It kind of warrants a toast,
Right.
in my opinion. So,
Well, there it is. We tried the two stretch breads, the two most well-known stretch breads. And, you know, we had actually chosen the patisserie and Pastabilities as the two to pit against each other before we had done the research into it to find
Right.
out that essentially they should be, because they are identical breads. You can't go wrong with either. Zach, give me a rating on the patisserie, 0 to 10.
patisserie for the stretch bread, I'm going to give a 8.4.
And what do you think about Pastabilities?
Pastabilities, I'm going to give an 8.3.
All right, I would say patisserie, not that you asked, but if you did. I would say the patisserie is a 10. And I would say that...
I don't know if I can allow you to give something a 10 on this show, dude. Oh, man. A 10 out of 10?
A 10 out of 10. This is stretch bread. Stretch bread is the best bread that ever existed, that ever will exist, that ever could exist. Stretch bread is the way to go. And Pastabilities, I will give a 9.8. And that's that. That's the way the cookie crumbles.
Wow, man. A 10 out of 10.
It's stretch bread. It's the best thing ever.
It is really, really good. You're right.
Thank you.
You're very
Enough
right
said.
about a 10 out of 10.
Maybe we should open 3 stretch breads to take on 2 different restaurants. All right, well, there it is. Stretch bread, a Central New York staple, something that as a Central New Yorker myself, I am immensely proud to say that this bread represents where I live.
Yep, I agree. I think it's used very well by restaurants all across the city, and these two places do just as equally a good of a job.
Yes. So head out to Skaneateles and check out the patisserie.
Yep.
Go down to Pastabilities, order some stretch bread. You can actually go across the street to Pasta's Daily Bread, to their bakery, sandwich shop, do lunch out of there.
Yep.
You know, just 2 overall great restaurants and 2, well, really 1 item of food that we should all be proud of here in Central New York.
Stretch bread.
So make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, like us on Facebook over at Eat Local New York, and you can also follow us along on Instagram at Eat Local NY State, where you'll be able to see upcoming episodes and vote on who we should be trying in each episode.
Awesome.
Until next time, I'm Anthony Tringale,
I'm Zach Cavallo.
and that's the way the cookie crumbles.